Convicted felon Donald Trump continues to freak out, whining on right-wing propaganda media as President Biden's campaign continues to poke Donald Trump, not that gently, saying convicted felon with that now famous photo of Donald Trump golfing. One of the other things that we're seeing as well is Donald Trump's lawyer, Todd Blanche, going on various media platforms saying that he didn't get a fair trial, so utterly humiliating there. The contrast between Donald Trump and Trump's lawyers all saying this is rigged over and over again. And Donald Trump's former lawyer, Joe Tacopina, who recently gave an interview on MSNBC over the weekend, and give a little hat tip to Tacopina saying, look, you could say a lot of things, but do not say this was rigged. Do not say that President Biden was involved in this at all. I was Donald Trump's lawyer on this case. I quit before the trial for my own reasons, but this was not a rigged trial. Donald Trump got a fair process and he lost. Again, that's coming from Tacky Tacopina. Maybe we should call him Tactful Tacopina. Also, a GOP subcommittee hearing was held earlier in the day, and as they're trying to change the narrative, they think bringing in Dr. Fauci and trying to spread lies about the origins of COVID is going to help their cause. And, you know, when they bring in Dr. Fauci, they become extra unhinged. And so this hearing today represents like the worst of what the Republican Party has become. Attacking a public, someone who's devoted their lives to public service like Dr. Fauci has. Dr. Fauci's been a renowned medical professional for over 50 years. And to see these MAGA Republicans attack him over and over again in such personal terms, saying, we should arrest you, was what Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying. I'm not going to call you a doctor, is what Marjorie Taylor Greene was saying. But the pro-democracy Democrats pushed back, and I want to give a hat tip to them as well. We'll share with you everything that went down at the committee hearing. It definitely backfired for the MAGA Republicans. And while the MAGA Republicans are behaving that way and their leader is a convicted felon and someone who's been found liable for sexual assault, on the other hand, you have President Biden's policies are working. We see the CHIPS Act has resulted in massive private sector investment as well in the semiconductor industry, actually reviving this industry, is a pretty big accomplishment. Also, President Biden's policies regarding the oil reserves here in the United States and trying to stop the obvious manipulation by OPEC has seemed to pay off. You have all of these countries affiliated with OPEC, like Saudi Arabia, trying to subsidize their ability to create artificial scarcity to try to jack up the price per barrel. But they had this meeting today. They can't compete with America as the number one oil supplier and provider in the entire world right now. So we're actually seeing a massive drop in the price per barrel of crude, and we'll talk a little bit about that. President Biden's also rolling up his sleeves and brokering a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and he's not shying away. Yes, it's a very controversial topic for him to talk about, but he recognizes that as the leader of the United States of America, he has a job to do. And so in a press conference on Friday, in addition to addressing the verdict and what law and order means, how Donald Trump got a fair process and a jury of Donald Trump's peers convicted Donald Trump and the process is not rigged, President Biden was addressing other topics, which may be controversial and difficult for the campaign, but President Biden realizes, I'm the president. I got to roll up my sleeves and do work. Meanwhile, on the other hand, you have the MAGA Republicans fueled by Donald Trump's ranting and ravings, now introducing their own proposals that are never going to go anywhere because they don't control the Senate, nor do they control the state of New York. They say they're going to defund Alvin Bragg. They're going to defund New York Attorney General Letitia James. They say they are going to provide no funding to the FBI. Great work, MAGA Republicans, for showing us who
Law and Order
are. This is the MeidasTouch Podcast, folks. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Brett and Jordy.
I wonder how they landed. Law and Order. I wonder how they landed on those specific prosecutors out of all the prosecutors in the country. Very, very curious that they landed on those few. You know, I'm doing great, brothers. It's always great to be here. It's great to be here with the Meidas Mighty. Had so much fun on our Patreon Zoom chat with everybody after Thursday's show. It was a great time. Want to thank everybody who participated in that. I also want to say, you know, these MAGA Republicans have been saying after Donald Trump became a convicted felon, after he was convicted by a jury of his peers, they've been saying, all Americans commit 3 felonies a day. You probably committed 6 felonies today. I just want to let everybody know, made it through the weekend. I don't think I committed a single felony. So, I don't know if I need a hat tip from
keep the hot streak going, big bro. Keep it going.
but oh my gosh, they're so nuts. And Ben, to your point about President Biden speaking on Friday about Israel and Hamas and Palestine, those are the moments where I think President Biden really shines, because I think, especially when you compare him to somebody like Donald Trump, you have in Trump somebody who is only thinking about politics and everything that he does. Literally every decision he does is politically motivated. And with President Biden, I truly believe that all of his decisions are based on his own personal principles and are based on what he thinks are best for the country. So it's probably was more politically expedient for him to call a press conference on the conviction of Trump and spend the entire time talking about the conviction of Donald Trump. That probably would have been the political thing for President Biden to do. But President Biden called on an issue that is one of the most controversial issues imaginable for him to speak about, one of the most difficult issues to speak about, an issue that kind of no matter what you say, you're going to have a whole lot of people mad at you. And he called that the day after because he is trying to move this peace plan forward. I think that shows you who President Biden is. And it's such an incredible contrast to somebody like Donald Trump and to these Republicans who just absolutely shamed themselves during this hearing today with Dr. Fauci. Just the lowest of the low behavior. But what else could you expect from them? Jordy, how are you doing? You have a good weekend? Everything good on your end?
Fantastic weekend, brothers. I'm really excited for the show. I 2 quick things. Ben, do we remove Tacky from Tacopina just for this episode and just see how things continue to play out? So
here's the thing. I think Ben established, keep the tacky, but it has a double meaning now. Because
interesting.
Tacky short for tactful.
Interesting. Okay. I dig that. And Ben, how is your wrist? I heard there was a little tennis incident over the weekend. What, you okay?
Did the rumors spread to you? Yes, the rumors are true. I had a tennis accident where I was playing really hard. We had 2 sets, which I won the first set 6-2, second set 6-1. Shout out Jeff Chemerinsky for playing and being a good sport about it. But then we said we're going to go that third.
I have to say the scores.
Of course he did. He needed to let everyone know that he won
publicly in front of everybody. Wow.
And then I was doing like backpedaling to get that. We said let's go third set. And you have to imagine, like, at this period of time in our lives, like Jeff and I, we used to play like 15 years ago. So we're back at it, though, and we play really hard and really aggressive. Almost to the point where the people playing on the courts next to us, like, kind of laugh at us because we're like, we're doing it. And so I went to run back, and I tripped over my feet, and I landed on my left wrist. And it didn't hurt right away. Like, it definitely was painful. But then all of a sudden in the afternoon, it hurt. Like I called up our uncle who's a doctor, and said the pain's like an 8 right now. And he's like, all right, just put some ice on, relax. It was really, really painful, but that's tennis story. Anyway, let's get right into it. Jordy, did you commit any felonies this weekend?
0 felonies. I'm good. I'm going to keep the hot streak going. How about you, babe?
Boys, Good job.
No felonies this weekend. But that's actually one of the arguments in the ridiculous kind of flood of disinformation and trying to normalize what Donald Trump did. They're like, everybody commits felonies right now. Like, there's 3 to 5 felonies committed by people every single day, is what the MAGA Republicans put out there. And it's like, that's not, what are you talking about? But, you know, maybe in their world that's the case, because the CFO of the pro-Trump digital platform called Epic Times, spelled EPOCH, which is run by the it's like a Chinese disinformation website run by the Falun Gong group. Well, the CFO was just criminally indicted for many felonies, charged with participating in a scheme to launder at least $67 million in fraud proceeds. And remember, this is the group that Falun Gong group, who they were the small group of people who actually showed up in front of the Trump criminal trial. There was like 5 or 6 of them, and they started just like crying. After the verdict. Well, it's that group that runs the Epic Times. They're the preferred media source for the Republican Party right now. Ted Cruz and all of them just post this disinformation from the Epic Times all the time. But I want to
pause there for 1 second. Pause there for 1 second. The Republican Party's preferred information source that they use in order to attack President Biden and Democrats is an organization that sows disinformation that is run by a literal Chinese cult. I just want to emphasize this point. The Republican Party uses information from a Chinese cult via the Epic Times, connected with Steve Bannon, of course, in order to spread disinformation and sow discord in our country. Everything they do is just so traitorous. It reminds me of, remember when Matt Gaetz was introducing some sort of, he had evidence that he wanted to introduce during some congressional hearing, and somebody called it out, like, Mr. Gaetz, are you introducing literal Chinese propaganda right now? And he was like, no, it's from and then he named off the website. And they said, yeah, that's literally a Chinese propaganda website. And he's like, okay. And they were like, let's strike that from the record, please. It's like they constantly, and I don't think this is a coincidence, find their information sources come from this Russian disinformation, Chinese disinformation, all of our adversaries who want to try to pull Americans apart. They seem to echo each other all the time.
Well, I don't want to confuse this indictment for the CFO of the Epic Times with the other indictment that took place back in March of 2023 with the other Chinese businessman, Miles Guo, who is also one of the people who prop up Steve Bannon. That's a separate source of the disinformation that funds all of MAGA. So you had Miles Guo indicted, Chinese disinformation, and then now you have the Falun Gong Chinese disinformation from the Epic Times being indicted. And one of the things that the MAGA Republicans will try to do over and over and over again is just say, look, by the way, on the same day where you have, there it is right there, the same day where you have President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, starting his federal criminal trial in Delaware for a paperwork violation where it was alleged that because Hunter Biden wrote in his book that he was addicted to drugs and did not check the box when he purchased a firearm during the period where he was addicted to drugs, that the Republicans, who are all for you can have AR-15s and any guns you want, they go after Hunter Biden on a paperwork violation based on Hunter Biden's autobiography, where he admitted to being under the influence of drugs involving firearms and not making a disclosure on the exact type of firearm forms that the MAGA Republicans and the NRA doesn't want to exist. So they'll be doing that. And then when their crew, and by the way, do we hear President Biden or are Democrats whining? I mean, do you hear anybody saying, oh, this is rigged and the judge is rigged and this one's rigged and the jury's rigged and the court is freezing and this is so unfair? Do you see President Biden posting it? He's not posting anything. He goes, I love my son. Of course, I'll be supportive of my son. But that's it. That's the post. Our family has been through a lot together. I'm proud of the man my son's become today. And our family is going to always love and support him, period. That's it. I don't have 30 messages from President Biden whining how it's rigged and it's unfair and a special prosecutor was influenced by MAGA Republicans to go after him. You don't see any of that. But anyway, the MAGA Republicans will then say, oh, the DOJ is going after Miles Guo and Epic Times because they support MAGA. No, it's because they engage in this type of conduct, and the MAGA Republicans led at the type and this type of conduct by Donald Trump. Just take a look over the weekend, though. What was Donald Trump doing? Recording propaganda videos of himself in Trump Tower, waving to nobody so that they could then tape it and pretend that he was waving to a crowd. Like, that is how he is coping with this. And remember when we reported the previous week after he got booed at the Libertarian Convention, he went to the NASCAR stadium in Charlotte and started waving to the crowd there, even though the crowd was not waving to him. They were watching the race and he was kind of far away. And then they edited it like that big crowd is there to see him when they're not. These people just want to go to sporting events. Like, he's ruining all of these sporting events, right? He just shows up at these events to use the crowds to act like he has all of these support, anyway, which he doesn't. Anyway, Brett, show the video if you can of Trump waving to nobody. It's ridiculous. Play this clip.
See you later.
And usually the camera's at the other angle, so you don't actually see that there's nobody there, but they screwed up and you got a glimpse of it right there.
Whoops.
So Donald Trump over the weekend, Fox, all the right-wing propaganda, what were they going with? They were going with that this criminal trial with 12 jurors who Donald Trump's lawyers selected along with the prosecution, that this was all rigged, that the jurors were rigged, that Biden was the one who convicted Donald Trump. This was actually the chyron on Fox. Biden convicts Trump, then smirks. And this is supposed to be, obviously, we know it's not a real news organization, but their whole op is to frame themselves as one. And they have a chyron like that when there is a jury verdict in our judicial system that finds Donald Trump liable or criminally guilty on 34 separate felony counts. It says Biden convicts Trump, then smirks. Let me just show you what Hillary Clinton said about Trump back in 2016, because she was right on so many things. And in 2016, when Donald Trump would say it was rigged, this is rigged, the Emmys are rigged, everything is rigged, Hillary Clinton was saying, look, that may be funny, but this is a serious issue if you elect him. And now we're seeing what went down. But show this clip from the debates in 2016, what Hillary Clinton said about him.
Every time Donald thinks things are not going in his direction, he claims whatever it is rigged against him. The FBI conducted a year-long investigation into my emails. They concluded there was no case. He said the FBI was rigged. He lost the Iowa caucus. He lost the Wisconsin primary. He said the Republican primary was rigged against him. Then Trump University gets sued for fraud and racketeering. He claims the court system and the federal judge is rigged against him. There was even a time when he didn't get an Emmy for his TV program 3 years in a row, and he started tweeting that the Emmys were rigged against him.
Should have gotten it.
This is a mindset. This is how Donald thinks. And it's funny, but it's also really troubling.
It is really troubling. And you see what Donald Trump was saying. Should have got it. And that's what he does in our country. And you have this MAGA base that listens and supports him saying this is rigged. And then after that, of course, the 2020 elections was rigged. All of the court cases were rigged. All of the cases that Donald Trump filed to try to overturn the results, including in front of judges he appointed. He says that was all rigged. Anytime it doesn't go his way, he says it was rigged. The civil fraud trial was rigged. E. Jean Carroll trial was rigged. There have been multiple juries now. A jury that found the Trump Organization guilty on felony counts. 2 separate juries that found Donald Trump civilly liable, one for sexually assaulting E. Jean Carroll and for defamation as well. 2 juries there. You've had Justice Engoron found Donald Trump liable for civil fraud. Now a jury here finding Donald Trump guilty on 34 separate felony counts. This is a pattern and practice. And then he just goes, it's all rigged. And that undermines the very fabric of our institutions here that are so important in our country, Brett.
Yeah, I'm one of the most frustrating things, though, that, I always try to also ground myself in is the fact that it's one thing for Donald Trump to say all these things, and it's one thing for Donald Trump to do all these things. We know that he's going to say and do all these things, and he's constantly going to be attacking our system. But it's the infrastructure and the kind of structures that are built around Donald Trump that support this that are really the even bigger problem. Like the fact that Donald Trump says that, and then he has an organization like the Epic Times to spread his propaganda, for example, or the fact that he has an entire network in Fox to make just absolutely despicable headlines that are just complete lies. They just lie with such impunity. Biden convicts Trump, then smirks. What a vicious lie. What a vicious lie that is not even based in any fact whatsoever. And so it's one thing that Donald Trump says these things, but the problem in this country is so far beyond that Donald Trump has turned essentially these news networks into cults. He's turned the entire Republican Party into a cult, and all they care about is just kind of raw power about disinformation. And quite frankly, the hearings that they have, the news in quotes, reports that they do, these are things that would make Vladimir Putin blush. These are things that would make Kim Jong-un blush. They are that crazy. And you have to understand that that's Donald Trump's plan if he were to become president again. Donald Trump wants to remake the United States of America in that same image where reality does not matter the same way reality does not matter in a place like Vladimir Putin's Russia, in a place like North Korea, where he controls all the media and he's able to spread these lies, and he has willing accomplices all around him who are willing to parrot these ridiculous ideas. And it doesn't matter how absurd. In fact, the more absurd, the better. That's what Donald Trump thrives on. And unfortunately, we have the system right now that is rewarding this kind of behavior.
Well, take a look what even went down this weekend as well when Fox rushed to platform Donald Trump's propaganda, right? They had the Fox and Friends crew. They did this interview with Donald Trump. When you watch this interview, you can see that it's highly edited. Like there's abrupt cuts as Donald Trump is saying certain things. And it's like, y'all are just making a campaign video for him. This isn't even, this is not anything remotely even close to journalism and news. But even with all of the cuts that they were making on their own, and they were like just such obvious cuts, like they look like, and Brett, you know this, like when someone first learns to edit, like, and you see like these abrupt cuts and you're just training people how to edit.
Could I show people what we mean? Like this is a clip. So I apologize in advance to the audio listeners, because you're probably not going to be able to pick it up, but the folks watching right now, and if you're on audio, make sure you subscribe to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the MeidasTouch audio podcast. But this is a perfect example where I know everyone could see it. And as I remember, I'm a video editor by trade. Like that's before MeidasTouch, I did that. And there are so many other moments that aren't as obvious as this one, but this is one that's so obvious that
you know what it's like, Brett. If you think about watching a movie from like the 50s or the 60s without special effects, when somebody was like shooting the ball and then like the ball gets shot and then like the ball just gets like in the hoop, and you're like, okay, that looks horrible. Like, how did anyone even buy that? Fox did a version of that here in this interview.
I'll show folks this one before we dig into the content, but look closely. You don't have to look that closely, but look closely.
But the poll numbers have gone up substantially. I don't know if that's going to remain that way.
You changed your tone at some point during the trial.
You catch that?
Yeah. I mean, it's not even like that's awful.
Once again, you don't have to have the years of editing experience I have to see that.
Wow. I want to show more clips from this Fox interview. It was so bizarre and so unhinged. And Donald Trump would say things like, I never said to lock Hillary up. I never led that chant. it was always just my supporters who said lock her up. I never said that, because Donald Trump's being asked, well, if you were saying to lock her up and now you're saying that you've gotten locked up, isn't this what you called for? So Donald Trump's way to deal with that is to throw his own supporters under the bus and go, no, that was the supporters who did that. By the way, the same thing he did on January 6th, throw his supporters under the bus. He continues to throw his supporters under the bus over and over again. But here's the tactic of the authoritarian, that you treat the people you rule over like crap, and you make the people you rule over feel worthless, and you make them feel that they deserve to be treated this way and that there is no hope. What always made the American experiment different and beautiful was that democracy's hard, but there was always this ability of hope, knowing that there was law and order, knowing that our messy system still dealt with some of the real devastating problems that exist, where you have strong men in the past. It's why lots of people always wondered, like, how are you able to keep it together there in the United States, just based on a constitution that's not all that long, but norms and just a course of dealing? But the same way Donald Trump in all of his business deals took contracts and course of dealings and good faith and ripped it up. That's what Donald Trump and the MAGA Republican Party have done with our great constitution and our incredible country. But I think people are, I'll talk a little bit about this soon. I think people are now starting to really pay attention, though. I think in addition to this verdict just having an impact in the fact that now Trump's a convicted felon, I think a lot of people are looking, let's take a look at Donald Trump's press conference the next day after he was convicted. And whoa, you're saying these things? And it's yeah, he's always been saying these things. That's why we keep on showing you them over and over again. Anyway, let's talk about that and more, but let's take our first quick break of the show.
Have you ever wished that you had a whiter and brighter smile? Well, before you visit a dentist, you should know that their whitening treatments can be very expensive. And it's not just the price. You also have to book the appointment and schedule time away from work or your family to just sit in a dentist's office chair while undergoing the procedure. Look, it's a hassle. Fortunately, now you can try Smile Actives at home or anywhere, anytime. Smile Actives offers a safe and an affordable alternative to those expensive whitening procedures. You may not have known this, but I won Best Smile in high school, and it's a lot of pressure to keep up with that. So throughout my adulthood, I used a variety of different whitening agents, and honestly, they were complicated, messy, and they didn't work. Having a nice bright smile is so important. First impressions and all that. You know what they say. That's why I'm so happy I found Smile Actives. Now, Smile Actives makes a teeth whitening gel that can simply be added to your toothpaste every time you brush your teeth. So no change in your routine, no extra time, and no more messy strips, trays, or lights. Simply add Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel to your regular toothpaste. It's been formulated with polyclean technology to boost stain removal and deliver active whitening ingredients into teeth's grooves and crannies to get better whitening. 97% of Smile Actives users in a clinical trial reported up to 6 shades whiter on average, all within 30 days. People will start commenting on your whiter, brighter smile in just days. Visit smileactives.com/Meidas today to receive a special buy one, get one free offer with auto delivery plus free shipping and handling. That's smileactives.com/Meidas. Terms and conditions apply. See site for details.
Sleep is the foundation of our mental and physical health. When you are sleeping well, you can perform at your best mentally and physically. Introducing Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep. If you know me, you know that Dream has been an absolute game changer for my sleep. I drink Beam's Dream Powder each night in order to get my optimal sleep, and I have to say, I would not be recommending this if it didn't actually help me. And today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder, their science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. Now available in delicious flavors like chocolate peanut butter, cinnamon cocoa, and sea salt caramel with only 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar. Other sleep aids could cause next day grogginess, but Dreams contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, melatonin, and nano CBD to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. The numbers don't lie. In a clinical study, 93% of participants reported Dream helped them get better sleep. Beam Dream is easy to add to your nighttime routine. Just mix Dream into hot water or milk, froth, and enjoy before bed. Find out why Forbes and New York Times are all talking about Beam and why it's trusted by the world's top athletes and business professionals. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Meidas and use code Meidas at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/MEIDAS and use code Meidas for up to 40% off.
Great.
Let's
ad reads
go.
right there.
Shout out to the Pro Democracy sponsors. Smile Actives, amazing. Beam, amazing. And just hit those promo codes, folks. They're in the YouTube descriptions and the audio descriptions of the show. Great products, and they're awesome for you too if you're in the market for those. So definitely check those out. Ben, real quick. Fox News, before we get into these clips, here's my fear. Not my fear, but here's what I know is about to happen come time for the American people to show or to see on full display Donald Trump v. Joe Biden in a debate, and just Trump's utter lunacy and just unhinged behavior. Is that, to your point, I don't think he's going to debate Donald Trump. I think he's going to use Fox as the propaganda platform that they are for his fireside chat, leverage that, and have them market it as if President Biden didn't want to debate Trump on Fox News. And that's going to be their big pitch to the American people. Do you see Fox continuing to cozy up to Trump as we get closer to the election? It's a no-brainer, right?
Of course, but that doesn't really bother me. I mean, every week Fox holds another Trump town hall. So them doing another one isn't going to change anything if you sandwich that between the other debates that are already scheduled, right? So to me, the key thing is going to be that I think that Trump will not debate President Biden in the debate in June. I think we will start to see the excuses really accelerate, where Trump will blame the gag order, Trump will blame Justice Merchan's daughter. Who knows what they'll make up? They'll come up with something. They'll blame the stars. They'll blame whatever they'll come up with, and Trump will say it's unfair. Because the reality is that everything that they say about President Biden is actually what Donald Trump is going through, right? Like, if you've watched the Donald Trump speeches, Donald Trump really can't put sentences together. That's not me being hyperbolic. He really just kind of rambles. In the past that we'll show you the transcripts just to show you that he's just saying like a bunch of random words. On the other hand, when you watch President Biden's speeches, admittedly, President Biden is older. We know that already, though. President Biden's not as quick as he was when he was the vice president to former President Obama. We know that already. But when President Biden speaks, and I could tell you this because I've interviewed President Biden, he's very deliberate in his words. The thoughts are very coherent. They are packed with a ton of detail. He answers the question, and he speaks through the value set that Americans, that the pro-democracy community, which includes mainstream conservatives, independents, and of course, liberals and progressives, all kind of talk through. So seeing an older and slightly slower President Biden speak about democracy, about protecting Social Security, about supporting women's reproductive rights, about protecting our allies abroad, about protecting our veterans, about looking after our seniors, about lowering healthcare costs, about making education more affordable and accessible. President Biden will talk about those things. Donald Trump will say things like that the January 6th insurrectionists are hostages. He'll talk about singing songs with them. He'll praise Vladimir Putin. He'll say how patriotic the January 6th insurrection was. He'll brag about overturning Roe v. Wade. Those are the things. And people who are now tuning in are going to say, wait a minute, media. Didn't you tell me that Donald Trump's lawyer did an amazing cross-exam on Michael Cohen and that Donald Trump was going to get acquitted, right? It's the same reaction where people are like, whoa, didn't you tell me that? they're going to look at it and they're going to feel betrayed once again. They already are. That's why they're cutting the cord and watching us on the MeidasTouch network. And that's what's fueled our growth. But people are then going to have this moment and say, wait a minute, corporate media, set aside. I mean, Fox's extremist propaganda media, all the right-wing stuff is just ridiculous. But other corporate media, wait a minute, I thought you were saying that this was a normal race. This guy's been saying this, and you've been acting like this is normal? What? And we're going to have another one of those moments in the next 30 days. And I think that's why where we'll be on July 1st, or as we head into the 4th of July, it's going to be entirely different than, where we've been. It's why I don't love following, even though now the polls are showing that this conviction of Donald Trump's really negatively impacted. I don't want to follow the horse race. I just want to report on what's going on. And let me give you an example before we show some of these, Fox and Friends clips. People may have been receiving text messages who weren't even on any of Donald Trump's lists this weekend. He must have bought some text message lists or whatever, because I know a lot of people who got messages from him who were like, I don't even subscribe to any of his things. I subscribe to his things because I report on this stuff, but lots of people were forwarding this to me. They're like, whoa, like what in the world was he sending out? I go, yeah, that's just the normal stuff he sends out. In all caps, he writes, all hell just broke loose. I was convicted in a rigged trial. I need you to read this. And then it basically begs for money. Or when he posts on his social media, the quote sentencing for not having done anything wrong will be, conveniently for the fascists, 4 days before the Republican National Convention, a radical left, Soros-backed DA who ran on a platform of I will get Trump, reporting to an acting local judge appointed by the Democrats who is highly conflicted, will make a decision which will determine the future of our nation. The United States Supreme Court must decide. So you're calling on your right-wing extremist justices who you appointed to now get involved in something that they have no jurisdiction over, a state law sentencing, and you're just spreading all of these lies, and you're putting you're saying sentencing in quotes, and you're saying that Alvin Bragg ran on I will get Trump, which is just false. You're putting quotes on a local judge, acting local judge. Look, Justice Merchan is a well-respected judge, a grand jury indicted. You were charged on 34 separate felony counts. There were 7 weeks of trial, 5 weeks where evidence was introduced. The jury deliberated for nearly 12 hours, and they found on all 34 counts a unanimous jury of 12 people. And by the way, y'all remember 2 things that were happening. One, all of the MAGA influencers were saying, oh, we've got 1 or 2 jurors who love Donald Trump, and they're smiling at him. We've got definitely 1 or 2 jurors. Well, that's what you were saying, so now that's changed. Also, weren't they saying throughout the trial that there were thousands of Trump supporters in New York who wanted to get to the court, but they were being blocked? Remember when they were lying about that? Or that they were going to flip New York City and they were going to turn it red? So I would assume that based on that logic, that most of the jury, if what you were saying was true, would be Trump supporters. Wouldn't most of the jury then be Trump supporters? So none of what they say is true. And when you realize quite literally everything they say is just an utter lie and just disgusting propaganda, then it all starts to click. And most people don't think through the framework of, wait a minute, they can't be lying about everything. Some of it has. No, they lie about quite literally everything. They wake up, they lie. They talk, they lie. They go to sleep, they lie. It's all a lie. Like this is an example where Donald Trump on Fox and Friends over the weekend. By the way, you saw they took that photo before where they were all like smiling, like with their thumbs up, like they were like fanboys of Donald Trump. That was pretty weird. Here Donald Trump says, I never said to lock up Hillary Clinton. That was just my supporters. And even the Fox and Friends people, the premise of their question is, you could have locked up Hillary Clinton. You were generous and you didn't. They're like, what are you even talking about? Donald Trump actually did weaponize his Justice Department and tried. She didn't commit any crimes. He tried to. She didn't commit any crimes. That's what happened. But believe me, he tried to. Here, play this clip.
I want to follow up on what Rachel asked you, though, because I hear you struggling with it. I hear you say it's a tough question, a bit unsure. You famously said regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. And so I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you. I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, lock her up. Okay. Then we won. And I said pretty openly, I say, all right, come on, just relax. Let's go. We got to make our country great. Yeah. And it would have been, think of it, you lock up the wife of a president of the United States.
They want to lock you up over $130,000 of an accounting thing, and
a perfectly stated accounting thing.
A perfectly stated accounting. They want to lock you up over 130,000 accounting thing. I mean, the fact that there is a major media network that just spews that filth under the guise of news is so utterly destructive. And by the way, you think Donald Trump never said lock her up, really? That it was just the people said it? Okay, well, let's take a look. Here's a clip of Donald Trump from 2020. I won't even go back yet to the 2016 campaign. This is what he was saying in 2020 when she wasn't even his opponent. Here, let's play this clip.
I'll tell you something, though. It's very lock them up. You shouldn't lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary. Lock them up.
And let me show you, here's another supercut. This one's by Mediaite, and they show just a number of times from 2016 to 2020. They probably could have had this last for 5 minutes, but here's just a short sample of Donald Trump saying to lock Hillary Clinton up. Play the clip.
Tell you what, for what she's done, they should lock her up. She's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
So crooked Hillary, crooked, you should lock her up, I'll tell you.
I'll tell you something, though. It's very lock them up. You shouldn't lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary.
Okay, here's one. Just came out. Lock her up is right.
You know what? I've been saying, let's just beat her on November 8th. But you know what? No. You know what? I'm starting to agree with you, I'll tell you.
All right, so
he's the lock, like you're the lock her up guy. Like that was your thing. Like that's your whole thing. It was like your slogan. So this is one of those things where I don't even understand how when a Trump voter hears that, how they don't go, what are you talking about? Or they're not like, wait, what were all the things we were chanting together?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were in this together, man. What, you ditching us again? You throwing us under the bus again? It's just like the weirdest, and it's part of the cult mentality that you have. I also noticed in the clip, in that short clip that we saw too of, where he says he didn't say lock her up. There's another weird edit in that clip that I noticed that's also edited. Like his answer comes in at a weird time. So I don't know what he was saying before that they cut out. And additionally, if you really like listen to the words that he is saying there as well, if you were to write it out in a transcript, the whole thing is nonsense. It's like one of those rambling sentences that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't mean anything. And it just further shows like the decline of this guy and how he really cannot even get out a single coherent sentence whatsoever.
And Brett, to your point, the Trump voter in the sense that they don't live in reality. That's why when you present them with facts and data, they'll try and spin any sort of narrative while using Trump as their vessel to kind of just continue to spew hate. And so when I'm listening to Donald Trump, Brett, to your also point there, he is the locker up guy. That's him. And so it's either one of two things. It's a severe cognitive lapse by Donald Trump, who truly doesn't remember that he said lock her up that many times, which should be disturbing to many people considering he's running for the president, or he's lying to the American people and his voters to their face, both of which should be reported on by corporate media raising their hands. Could you imagine if Biden didn't remember anything at any moment? They would pounce on him, talk about his cognitive ability. But no, for whatever reason, corporate media continues to lay off that narrative when it comes to Trump. So it's two things. He's either lying to his voters to their faces because he believes they're stupid, or it's severe cognitive lapse, both of which should be reported on.
Yeah, it's obviously the former. I mean, he knows he's lying. His whole life is lying. His whole life is lying and bankrupting things. Like, he was never a builder. He was always a destroyer his entire life. You go through all of the businesses, all of the things that he's been involved in. Look, there are successful business people who don't have tens of thousands of lawsuits and criminal indictments and all of that. You know, Donald Trump's the biggest liar ever, and he doesn't give a crap because, you know, where normally people would feel bad about deceiving others, or, you know, you would have some sort of guilt, you would feel certain. Donald Trump doesn't. For Donald Trump, it's how does he take your money? How does he stay in power? And then there's a concomitant pathology, though, in a certain group of people that history has taught us this lesson, and it's a anomaly why the human brain works this way. But people who are repressed sometimes identify with their repressor. The authoritarian who treats the people like crap, the people then think that that's what they deserve, especially when you pair that with the authoritarian trick of the common enemy. The Marxist, the fascist, all these people are coming for you. They want to attack you. I'm the only one who can save you. That unlocks this strange aspect in people's life, in the way people think, and people fall for this. And I just think we were under the naive belief that here in the United States of America that we were better than that, and we could avoid that, and we would look at films like The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen and make fun of the scene where the Sacha Baron Cohen rolls in with like the weirdo cult here. But no, I mean, MAGA's become this way, and this is what we have to deal with, and we have to take it very seriously, and we have to report on what's going on. By the way, like, here's Donald Trump from that Fox and Friends interview. Let's just show you the key things that he's whining about. So here he's whining about the jury and says that because the jury was from a certain persuasion, whatever he's trying to say there, that's why one of the reasons it was unfair. It was the jury's persuasion. Here, play this clip.
And how can you have a witness like so-and-so? I'm not allowed to mention the name. Can you believe this? This guy's allowed to have shows, television shows. I'm not allowed to mention the name. It's so unfair. But regardless, you know, you have to really play the hand that you're dealt. And then you had a jury that was, you know, from a certain persuasion. Would have been hard to do no matter what. But I did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, absolutely, think of it.
I mean, just the whining. I mean,
I noticed at least 3 more edits within that one clip as well. This interview is edited like crazy.
A ton of edits, but just the whining. There was a certain persuasion. It's so unfair. It's so like, who would just want
obviously a racist comment.
What do you say?
I say obviously racist, like just racism, like just a racist comment by Trump. Like,
and here he says that they should, as part of his whining, it's so unfair. The jury's a certain persuasion. They shouldn't have allowed certain people to testify. Here's part of his whining. Let's play this.
And then they indict you and they go to a grand jury and they don't use Bob Costello's testimony. You know, they use almost none of it. They didn't want him before the grand jury because he's very persuasive. This judge didn't want him to talk. They shouldn't have allowed certain people to testify. It was totally wrong that they did that.
Another edit.
Bob Costello testified. He was the MAGA lawyer who Trump's lawyers didn't want to call, who Trump made them call, who basically collapsed under cross-examination when he said, I was only trying to help Michael Cohen. I had no interest at all in trying to help Donald Trump. And then on cross-examination, Costello was shown the emails where he called Michael Cohen an a-hole and said, how can we try to help Donald Trump silence Michael Cohen? And then the prosecutor said, so I guess these emails speak for themselves, huh? And Costello went, yeah, I guess they speak for themselves. So that's Costello, who testified at the criminal trial. Guess who else could have testified? You, Donald Trump. You could have testified. You said you were going to testify. You want to make an advice of counsel defense and blame your lawyers? Okay, then say it was your lawyer's fault. Take the stand, waive attorney-client privilege, and you could have taken the stand. You could have called Eric. You could have called Don Jr. You could have called Keith Schiller, your bodyguard. You could have called any number of you could have called Alan Weisselberg, your former CFO. It's your choice. But that's just who they are. And Brett, It's not just Trump, though, going on Fox and parodying this. You had that guy, Todd Blanche, who's Trump's lawyer. He went on his right-wing media tour since the verdict as well. And he's saying the same things over and over again that he knows are false. As I said on Legal AF, and let me just repeat it again here. I do not fault a criminal defense lawyer for representing someone who's alleged to have committed crimes, even very serious crimes. I draw a distinction between the function of a lawyer and their client. And so if you want to represent really bad people or people accused of bad things, even Donald Trump, I am actually okay with you doing that as a criminal defense lawyer. But that changes the moment you become an agent of Trumpism to destroy our Constitution and to rip apart our judiciary and cast doubt on our judicial system and then just lie about it. At that point, you lose all respect and it's fair game because you're no longer acting as a defense lawyer. You're acting as an agent to try to destroy our judicial system. And when Todd Blanche went on CNN, he was asked, so why didn't you call some of these witnesses? Like, you could have called witnesses, right? And you'll see Todd Blanche's response is, nope, this is America. We can't call witnesses. The prosecution has to call all of the witnesses. We're not allowed to, which is just 100% false. Here, let's show you that clip.
When he was leaving, one thing he brought up were the witnesses who were not called. And he was saying that there could have been witnesses that would have helped make the case. We never saw Keith Schiller, Alan Weisselberg, some key figures here who got brought up a lot. Why didn't the defense call any of these witnesses?
Well, because we happen to live in America and we don't have the burden of proof. And so that's not the point. That's a question that is a loaded question that should not be asked of a defense attorney or a defendant. The question that we asked the jury, and they ultimately obviously got passed, is why the prosecution didn't call those witnesses, right? You, as a defense attorney, you don't go into a case saying, I'm going to fill the holes of the prosecution, right? And Keith Schiller and some of the other witnesses that were not ultimately called, in our view, should have been called by the prosecution. And we asked the jury to take a hard look at that. I don't know whether they did or not, but they convicted.
Yeah, they did not. They did not, because the prosecution met its burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump is guilty to 12 jurors on a unanimous basis. When they meet their burden, yeah, it's not your job to fill in the holes, but quite literally your job as a criminal defense lawyer is to try to persuade the jury that there is reasonable doubt. And one of the ways you would do that is, if you had evidence, you would call people who you think would be helpful to your case. Like, the fact that I even have to explain this concept right now is wild to me. That is quite literally the role of a criminal defense lawyer. And so you don't have to, you're under no obligation to call any witnesses. But if you had witnesses who you believe would help you cause the jury to feel doubt, then why wouldn't you bring them in? Because obviously you thought those witnesses were going to hurt you. But as Todd,
you know what he's also under no obligation to do, Ben? He's under no obligation to go on TV and speak to the press like this also. And there's nothing wrong with going on TV and speaking to the press. But when you're going to use the press in order to spread more lies about our judicial system, spread more lies about our institution, I think that speaks really poorly to you as a member of the bar. I think that speaks really poorly to you as a member of the legal profession. And by the way, I hope there are consequences for the actions of attorneys like this, like the record of all these past Trump attorneys who have also, done things like this. You had Todd Blanche also. I'm not going to play this one, but you had Todd Blanche also going. That was a CNN interview, but he also went on Fox and he was also spreading that whole lie. If we go to the Supreme Court first, we're going to go to the Supreme Court. Like, he knows he can't do that. He knows damn well he can't do that. So who does he think he is going on Fox to spread this propaganda? It's just the height of irresponsibility for a licensed attorney to do. And that is the part, to your point, Ben, that bothers me. It's not that he's representing Donald Trump. Yeah, I've never said a bad thing about Susan Nicholas on the show. She represents Donald Trump. She's not going on TV saying stupid stuff like this. She's being a professional attorney. Todd Blanche, however, quite the opposite.
Look, Donald Trump's sentencing is now scheduled for July 11th. Donald Trump has to give an interview with a probation officer. As a convicted felon, Donald Trump is banned from owning a firearm. Donald Trump, but nonetheless, the Republicans want him to run the military, but he can't own his own firearm. He also can't travel to like dozens of countries as a result of being a convicted felon. And there's lots of other restrictions as well. And look, Justice Merchan's a law and order judge. There's going to be some form of prison sentence. Now, I hope it's actually serving time in Rikers. But I think at the very least, it will be home confinement. But Justice Merchan is not just going to give him, in my opinion, like a slap on the wrist. Donald Trump has been found in contempt over 10 times in this case for violating the gag order. And the prosecution is going to bring up Donald Trump's behavior from when the case was, before it was even brought to the grand jury and before the indictment was even secured and right after the indictment. Remember when Donald Trump posted that photo of himself with the baseball bat, and he posted a side-by-side of him with the baseball bat and Alvin Bragg's head like he was going to bludgeon out. All this stuff is going to be part of the sentencing memorandum. Also, as part of the sentencing, the prosecution is going to bring up that Donald Trump has been found liable for sexual assault, that Donald Trump has been charged by multiple other grand juries across the country. They're going to bring up that the Trump Organization was found guilty in another New York trial that people don't even really talk about. But the Trump Organization is a felony organization for tax fraud. All of that stuff. And then one of the other factors is there remorse? Is there an acknowledgement of guilt? And all of Donald Trump's statements attacking the judge and the judge's daughter.
Attacking the jury, all the other gag violations. He thinks it could be too cute by half by going like, and there's a guy who was a witness who I'm not allowed to mention him by name, but he's a sleazebag and he's allowed to do podcasts. That's sleazebag. Like you can't get around the gag order by doing that. Okay. And I'm sure this is all going to be taken into consideration. And Trump has done this in every trial, by the way. Like, I am sure that if he behaved himself during the E. Jean Carroll trial, showed some contrition, said, oh, that was a horrible thing for me to say. Could you even imagine this coming out of his mouth? It's like laughable, right? This was a horrible thing for me to say. I really shouldn't have done it. I don't know what I was thinking. I was caught up in the height of the campaign. Listen, I'm sorry. I apologize. I take responsibility. Do you think he would have been hit with the verdict in that case, the amount of money that he has to pay, if he didn't also like attack the jury in those cases the same? Do you think he would have the same result? No. And the same thing's going to happen here when sentencing happens, because he's doing the same things that have led him to severe consequences in the other case. However, the game is totally different on this one because he can't just get his little bond to get out of this and to stay out of a jail sentence. He's actually can be sentenced to Rikers here. Like he could be sentenced to actual hard time, and he is walking himself right into it.
And the way he runs his life, the way he runs his organizations, the criminality, the abuse, the incompetence, the sleepiness, the strangeness, right? That's how he wants to run our country. That's how he ran our country for 4 years. That's how he mishandled COVID. That's how he mishandled our debt. And he wants to come in and inject that in our country. What I like about President Biden, a lot of things, that his policies actually work, that it's detailed oriented. He doesn't have to be the smartest guy in the room. He surrounds himself with a team of the best and the brightest, that they have plans, that they care about details, that they care about facts, and that there's no drama. You know, he's not out there every day in your face complaining and whining. I haven't heard him complain or whine once. If anybody had the right to complain or whine about the way the media is treating him or the way, other officials are treating him and his family, it would be Biden. And you never hear him say it once. Why? Because he's a leader, and leaders don't whine. They don't complain. They just go about doing their work. And that's what leadership is all about. I want to show this clip of Tacopina, Donald Trump's former lawyer. And then we got to show you what went down during the subcommittee hearing on COVID today, and how the MAGA Republicans just made total fools of themselves. Let's talk about all of that, but let's take our last quick break of the show. It's hot outside, and your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. If you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend you check out Miracle Maid's bed sheets. Miracle Maid sheets are inspired by NASA and use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather, so you get better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than the sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, cause breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/Meidas to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo Meidas, MEIDAS at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle, TRYMIRACLE, trymiracle.com/Meidas, and use the code Meidas to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Meidas to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
What if you could support family farmers and reduce your environmental imprint, all while enjoying the highest quality meat on earth? When you join the Moink movement, you can. Moink delivers grass-fed and grass-finished beef and lamb, pastured pork and chicken, and sustainable wild-caught Alaskan salmon straight to your door. Moink farmers farm like our grandparents did, and as a result, Moink meat tastes like it should, because the family farm, let's face it, does it better. And the Moink difference is a difference you can taste. Unlike the supermarket, Moink gives you total control over the quality and source of your food. You choose the meat delivered in every box, like ribeyes to chicken breast to pork chops to salmon fillets, and much more. Plus, you can cancel at any time. Moink is helping save rural America. I love it, and you will too. Join the Moink movement today. Shark Tank host Kevin O'Leary called Moink's bacon the best bacon he's ever tasted, and Ring Doorbell founder Jamie Siminoff jumped at the chance to invest in Moink. Plus, they guarantee you'll say, oink, oink, I'm just happy I got moinked. I know I do, and you will too. Keep American farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch right now. And listeners of this show get free bacon for a year. That's 1 year of the best bacon you'll ever taste, but for a limited time. It's spelled MOINK box.com/MeidasTouch. That's moinkbox.com/MeidasTouch.
Let's
There we
go.
go. Let's go.
I had the best night's sleep literally last night with the Miracle Made sheets. They are fantastic. Plus, the towels that come with the order are also equally as amazing. So definitely check them out. They've been a sponsor now for a while, so continue to support. I know a lot of the Meidas Mighty have gotten from Miracle Made, and all positive, reviews from them. So definitely check them out. I'm a huge fan personally. And then Moink, delicious. We actually had the founder of Moink come on for a quick interview a few weeks back, or a couple months back at this point, but she's fantastic. She's pretty funny. And Moink is just delicious. So excellent products, amazing discounts. Check them out. Descriptions of both YouTube and audio.
No more tacky Tacopina. I think it's tactful Tacopina. He seems to win the award for the most responsible Trump lawyer in 2024. He represented Donald Trump in the first E. Jean Carroll defamation trial, where Trump was hit with the $5 million verdict. He withdrew, so he was never affiliated with the second E. Jean Carroll trial, which Alina Habba ran, where Donald Trump was hit, when you add pre and post judgment interest, with a $90 million verdict. And Tacopina was representing Donald Trump in the Manhattan falsification of business trial. And Tacopina, after the E. Jean Carroll trial, just had enough of Donald Trump. Maybe he wasn't paid what he should have been paid, which would not be surprising, or just otherwise had a change of heart after Donald Trump continued to just embarrass and humiliate and destroy Tacopina's reputation, because Tacopina was always known as a fairly, normal, good, like normal guy, good lawyer. And so it was very surprising. I just think he was one of these people who thought that, like he'd be able to like actually get through to Donald Trump and represent him in the case and show what a good lawyer he was. And obviously that didn't happen. Nor could that ever possibly happen. You know, Donald Trump's whole thing is he will just destroy your reputation, destroy your life. Like this is what Donald Trump does. Anyway, here's Joe Tacopina over the weekend. He's friends with Al Sharpton. That's why he breaks these exclusives with Sharpton. And here's what he said about Donald Trump's claim that the trial was rigged and how false that is for Trump and Trump's lawyers and others in the MAGA world to say that it was rigged. Here, let's play this clip.
They might have a spring today, but it's not going to last very long because what happened in New York is a travesty of justice. Everybody knows it.
I can't believe the hoax, this sham, this absolute injustice justice system, weaponizing the justice system of the United States of America against a political opponent. Un-American. Joe Biden, you're fired.
I do believe the Supreme Court should step in. Obviously, this is totally unprecedented, and it's dangerous to our system. This will be overturned, guys. There's no question about it. It's just going to take some time.
What are your thoughts on what you just heard, Joe? And as I mentioned, they're just a few of the many of the Republican leaders.
Yeah, when I hear, like, Tim Scott is someone I used to respect, but I sort of lost a lot of respect from what I just heard because he sounded so uneducated, unintelligent, and made no sense at all to say that, look, I understand there's a political motivation to a lot of what's going on in our country today. And everyone wants to sort of paint a broad brush and, you know, this is a political vendetta and then it's weaponization of the justice system. This is a state case. This is different than the Jack Smith cases, okay? This is not a federal prosecution. Joe Biden or anyone from his Justice Department have absolutely zero to do with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They have no jurisdiction over him. They have no contacts with him. They have no control, certainly, over him. So to say that Joe Biden brought this case is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard. We know that's not the case. And even Trump's lawyers know that's not the case.
Now, wait right there, because as you say, even Trump's lawyers know that's the case. You were attorney with Trump. You were on Trump's case early and got off the case. So you're speaking as one that knew as you signed into work for Trump, which you explained on this show why, and you explained why you got out, that this had nothing to do with Joe Biden or any of the federal government trying to lean in on Donald Trump.
The federal government has no input on the Manhattan District Attorney. It's a state prosecution.
That's Donald Trump's former lawyer right there on this specific case, saying that Donald Trump and all these MAGA Republicans and Trump's current lawyers are just absolutely lying. I mean, and it's obvious that they're lying, but to hear it from someone as close to Donald Trump on this specific case, I think is important. But we can say Donald Trump's former chief of staff. We could say Donald Trump's former national security advisor. We could say Donald Trump's former defense secretary. We could say Donald Trump's former attorney general. You could say Donald Trump's former secretary of state. You could say the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You could say multiple of former Donald Trump's generals. You can go through the list of multiple people, hundreds of people at the highest levels who have worked for Donald Trump, who say, do not ever let this person get near power again. We worked for him. We were as close to him as anybody. Red flag. He's a menace and he is dangerous. Just imagine for a moment if you worked at a law firm or an accounting firm or wherever, and everybody who worked for the partner said that partner is horrible. The worst.
Think about references, right? Like who you put down as your references. So picture a business calling your references, and one by one, okay, this person worked really closely with you. Let me call your partner at the firm. No, he's terrible. He'd almost destroyed our company completely. If you hire him, he'd destroy your company. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that one was a fluke. Let's try, one of the other executives who worked with him at the company, I guess. Boop, 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 boop. Yeah. So I got this employee here, and oh no, that guy is a threat. Like you just start hearing that over and over and over again. You got to at some point put it together, right? The one thing I noticed, Ben, too, and Jordy, with people who work for Trump, don't they like when they're working for Trump, they look like possessed. And when they're done working for Trump, they have like a lightness about them, right? Like Tacopina in that interview looks like a different person than Tacopina when he was actually representing Donald Trump. And I put together this photo here of Tacopina while he was repping Trump. I mean, you can see the vein like popping out of his head in this picture, and whatever the heck is happening with this doll and the leg behind him. I don't even know what the heck is happening there. But this was during a press conference with Todd Blanche when he was defending the infamous baseball bat picture. That's when this photo was taken. And you could see on the right, Todd Blanche next to Donald Trump at the trial, just standing there. I think Ben described him as Brick. He looks like Brick Tamblyn from Anchorman, just standing there. The Steve Carell character in Anchorman. And he definitely, I mean, he does. But like you see like the soullessness of these people when they're in this Trump cult, and when they're out of it, you do see this like it's as if they were like bitten by a vampire and then got like the antidote, and you're like, whoa, this is weird. Like what happened to the other guy that we saw? Just like it's a weird thing when they get pulled into this Trump cult, and when they get out though, oftentimes they seem so much freer, and I don't understand the lure of going into that cult and having to just debase yourself like that.
You know, I think it's money that really just brings, or the perception that they're going to get some sort of fame and money from aligning themselves closely with Donald Trump, which we all know in many instances is not true at all. Couldn't actually be further from the truth. And I say this all the time when we hear Kevin McCarthy speak and defend Trump, it's like his soul is genuinely leaving his body. And I think why these people, not Kevin McCarthy, but like a Tacopina, for example, looks so much better now that he's distanced himself from Trump. It's because at the end of the day, most people have a conscience, and it hurts people to lie and be so evil daily and defend such an awful human being that is Donald Trump in an effort to, I don't know, get fame and get money, or the perception of that will come. And so once they're finally able to step back and be like, oh, I'm just going to spit and talk reality and facts to the American people, life becomes much easier when you don't have to hide behind lies and just spreading rumors and just vicious attacks on people, when you could actually just speak the truth.
You know, a good sign, though, that the current realities are starting to break through is when you start to hear important, accurate, data-driven conversations in other areas outside of politics. That's always one of the indicators to me that we're really in an election season, and obviously we know that here, but that the American people are starting to like really recognize it and focus on it. So, you know, Colin Cowherd, and Brett, you want to talk about who Colin Cowherd is and what he said, but you know, a sports commentator who's not a liberal guy by any means. And he spoke out this weekend, and it was a viral moment. Why don't you talk about that, Brett? Because I think it's important. I think it's important to know, too, that Colin's no liberal.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Colin Cowherd, he's a sports commentator. He has a show called The Herd, which is a very popular sports show. I think he's on Jordy, Fox Sports, ESPN Radio.
Yeah, he's on Fox Sports, FS1.
Yeah, he's on quite a bit. Like a lot of people listen to Colin, and I remember because it was controversial when he had one of his bad hot takes in advance of the 2022 election that he thought there was going to be this red wave, and he had made a very kind of strong statement about that back then. And so to see him kind of wake up to this reality is a big deal, and to see him saying this to an audience that's primarily there to hear updates about sports, you know, I think is it's especially powerful. I think when certain things come from certain messengers. So here's what Colin Cowherd said, and I thought this was just absolutely spot on, and it's quite frankly echoes something that I've been saying, and that I feel like we've been saying to each other, whether on the show or off the show. And I'll read Colin's statement here. Colin said about Trump: Trump's trying to sell me an America that doesn't exist. I don't see crime. I'm not stumbling over homeless people. I see happy people. Dodger Stadium is full. Leads Major League Baseball in attendance. Laker games are full. NFL games are full. People have money in their pocket. LAX is packed. I saw a record airline revenue over the weekend. I'm constantly being sold in America by Donald Trump of crime rates are skyrocketing. No, they're actually not. Starting in 2023, they plummeted coast to coast. You can't keep selling me on how bad the country I live in is, because it's not bad for me and my friends. friends. Donald Trump is now a felon. His campaign chairman was a felon. So is his deputy campaign manager, his personal lawyer, his chief strategist, his national security advisor, his trade advisor, his foreign policy advisor, his campaign fixer, and his company CFO. They're all felons, judged by the company you keep. It's a cabal of felons. If everyone in your social circle is a felon, I don't think it's rigged. I don't think the world's against you. And to get people to agree on anything, 34 counts, 0 for 34. That's a batting slump even the New York Mets could be impressed with. 0 for 34 when you're constantly trying to sell me an America that I don't see. Trump's entire game plan is the country is in a free fall. Well, maybe in the Trump-centric neighborhoods it is. I don't think the Mets had to catch strays with
that's called a stray.
But his point is an astute point, and it's something that I've been saying constantly, and quite frankly, it's something that inadvertently Donald Trump has also been showing everybody, because the whole thing is Trump goes to all these venues that are packed with people. Donald Trump goes to the NASCAR event. That's packed with a bunch of happy people. Donald Trump goes to the UFC event. That's packed with a bunch of happy people. What a contrast, right? What a contrast to 4 years ago. Because you know what people were doing 4 years ago? They were hoping they didn't die. They were locked in their houses, watching their family and friends die, hoping that they weren't next, struggling to buy food, struggling to find toilet paper, couldn't do a damn thing. And so the contrast could not be clearer when you actually have Donald Trump going out into these venues that are doing so great now, thanks to President Biden, quite frankly. He's showing that off to everybody. And I think that's an important point. And it's something that I felt too. I went to a Dodgers game recently. It was packed. Everyone was enjoying themselves. Everyone was having the time of their life at the Dodgers. Dodgers got rocked. They got destroyed at the game I was at. That was unfortunate. But people were having a good time. Ben and I went to a basketball game a couple months back. It was fun. People were having fun. They were cheering. People weren't focused on Twitter. They weren't focused on the doom and gloom. They were having a good time. And it's not to say that everything in the country is perfect. It's not to say that everything is perfect. For sure, there's a lot of stuff to do, right? There's a lot of progress to be made. But you have to acknowledge the realities when you're seeing companies with record revenue, when you see people with more consumer confidence, when you see wages increasing, beating inflation, right? That's what you want. When you see America be the number one in GDP growth, number one in wage growth. These are all very positive things. And so the fact that Colin Cowherd is saying this to his audience, hopefully he's waking some other people up who may not be as in tune with politics and may quite frankly be buying Donald Trump's spin, because we've talked about the spin before, and we've talked about Donald Trump and the Republican Party's plan. It's to make you miserable. And not just to make you miserable, it's to make you miserable and their own followers miserable so that he could say, I'm the only one who could fix these problems. Becomes a lot harder when things are pretty good to say that you need someone to come in and fix these problems. So what do? You lie about the reality. You make it up. You say, actually, no, don't believe your eyes and ears. Everything sucks. You think you're having fun right now? Nope, you're horrible. You're having a horrible time. Everything's terrible. But I could fix it. That's Donald Trump's strategy. That's what he's trying to do. And what else do? They try to distract with these, we just had this entire week, and they're still going on, right, about this politically motivated investigation, politically motivated prosecution. It's all politics. They're all grandstanding. And so what do the Republicans do today? They hold a hearing with Dr. Fauci so they could threaten to throw him in prison, do an actual kind of kangaroo court in Congress, just absolutely disgrace themselves in one of the most shameful displays that you have ever witnessed, just torturing this guy who has already been a victim of so much hate at their hands because of their lies, because of their propaganda. So, Ben did a whole hot take on this, so I'm not going to play a bajillion clips on this, but I do want to show you some of the lowlights and maybe some other actual positive moments from it. Here was a moment where Representative Maliotakis, Republican representative, tried to corner Dr. Fauci. You're making all this money off the pharmaceutical industry, aren't you? How much money? Fauci goes, nothing.
The conspiracy. Appreciate that. Dr. Fauci, how much have you earned from royalties from pharmaceutical companies since the pandemic began in 2021?
Zero.
It says NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers. You're saying that you did not receive any of the $710 million?
On COVID, I received, I think, $122 for a monoclonal antibody that I made 27 years ago.
Okay, so just in general, though, how much have you received, not related to COVID, just in general, how much have you received in royalties between 2021 and 2023?
I think none.
Okay, so somebody received the $710
Somebody
million.
did, but not me.
You didn't receive any royalties. Okay.
I see no royalties associated with COVID. I mentioned.
I said.
No, I want to.
No, I just said.
I'm on the record, and I want to make sure that this is clear. That I've developed a monoclonal antibody about 25 years ago that's used as a diagnostic that has nothing to do with COVID, and I receive an average of about $120 a year from that patent.
Then you have Marjorie Taylor Greene threatening to imprison Dr. Fauci.
You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
Marjorie Taylor Greene says she actually refuses to call Dr. Fauci a doctor. She will not call Dr. Fauci a doctor anymore.
You think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor. You're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here.
Mr. Chairman,
Fauci,
objection.
I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady will suspend. Mr. Chairman, of order. Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in prison.
Will suspend. The gentlelady should recognize the doctor as a doctor.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, is this what we have become? Is this what we have devolved into?
And finally, I'll show you Representative Jamie Raskin, who made a very funny point about how they're treating Dr. Fauci as a criminal and the hypocrisy of that.
I want to join my colleague from Florida in apologizing to you that some of our colleagues in the United States House of Representatives seem to want to drag your name through the mud. They're treating you, Dr. Fauci, like a convicted felon. Actually, you probably wish they were treating you like a convicted felon. They treat convicted felons with love and admiration. Some of them blindly worship convicted felons.
It's such a good dig, and it just shows you the depths of depravity of these Republicans, that they would bring in Dr. Fauci just to yell things like that at him, just to further spread their conspiracy theories. Why? Because he was like the one guy who was actually trying to help during the worst pandemic of our lifetimes. That's why they're going after this guy. And like, I want to remind even the MAGA supporters, if you're a MAGA supporter that somehow stumbled upon this stream somehow and you're trolling in the comments, let me remind you that on Donald Trump's final day in office, his last day in office, he awarded Dr. Fauci with a presidential commendation. So what's your excuse for that? How could you be so angry at Dr. Fauci, say he deserves prison, when your cult leader gave him one of the highest presidential awards the day, made sure he did it the day before that he, I would say, left office, the day before he unwillingly left office, I will say. I mean, the hypocrisy is just absolutely boundless with these MAGA Republicans. But, you know, let me also show this too, because let's go back in history for a little bit. I want to show you George H.W. Bush and his comments about a younger Dr. Fauci back then. And this will just show you how far the Republican Party has fallen.
People that are clean and honorable and out there setting the pace. I think of Dr. Fauci. Probably never heard of him. Well, you did, and heard him. He's a very fine research, top doctor at National Institute of Health, working hard doing something about research on this disease of AIDS.
But that Republican Party doesn't exist anymore. And quite frankly, if that Republican Party did exist, the show would be a lot different. The conversations we would be having would be a lot different than they are. We don't go after Republicans at these hearings today because they're Republicans. We don't go after them because of any sort of like political bias that we have. Our bias here is towards the truth. Our bias here is towards trying to get back to a place of normalcy. Our bias is not buying in to the cultish nature of this Republican Party, of MAGA, and of much of the media. And here's the perfect example of that, right? Very contentious Senate battle coming up this November, where the Republicans are favored. There are some seats that are very important for both parties to try to get in order to either keep the Senate or to win over the Senate. And one of those seats is Larry Hogan in Maryland. But guess what? Larry Hogan, he said that people should respect the process of the courts and should respect the jury and respect the legal system. So what does that mean to RNC chair Lara Trump? Can't support him anymore.
Republican Senate candidate Larry Hogan in Maryland, and again, I'm asking this in your capacity as one of the co-chairs of the entire Republican Party, and he's a popular former governor in Maryland. He wrote this right ahead of the verdict. He said, quote, "Regardless of the result, I urge all Americans to respect the verdict and the legal process." That is not the Republican Party line at the moment, and in fact, he was attacked by the top Trump advisor, Chris LaCivita, who wrote that he, quote, "just ended your campaign," end quote. Does the Republican National Committee support Larry Hogan for Senate?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I don't support what he just said there. I think it's ridiculous. And I think anybody who's not speaking up in the face of really something that should never again have seen the light of day, a trial that would never have been brought against any other person aside from Donald Trump.
But does the RNC support his bid?
The respect of anyone. Well,
he doesn't deserve the respect of anyone?
He doesn't deserve the respect of anyone in the Republican Party at this point. And quite frankly, anybody in America, if that's the way you feel, that's very upsetting to hear that.
So are you willing to cede the Senate seat in Maryland to the Democratic Party and not support Larry Hogan?
What I'll tell you is that we, of course, want to win as a party, but that is a shame. And I think he should have thought long and hard before he said that publicly.
Are you willing to use Republican Party resources to support his bid or not? It sounds like you're saying you're not.
Well, I'll get back to you on all the specifics monetarily, but what I can tell you is that as the Republican Party co-chair, I think he should never have said something like that. I think that's ridiculous.
Bold strategy, Lara. Let's see how it works out for them this November. And you're muted. Ben, you're muted for a sec if you want to.
Oh, I was just saying that Larry Hogan just simply said, respect the jury process.
Yeah, that's all he said.
You would think he would say something like, I don't know. He literally just said we should respect our process and our judicial system.
Yeah, he didn't even say like that felon, that convict. He didn't even do that.
According to Lara, nobody in America should support someone who says respect the rule of law. Nobody. Yeah. So interesting take there from Lara. Lara is really meeting the moment. She does not disappoint. I am go Lara go, as Jamie Harrison would say.
Well, Lara of the quote unquote law and order party, it's they tweet law and order all they want, but clearly all law and order means is their ability to commit crimes with impunity and to try to actually punish their political enemies. But let me show you an actual law and order individual. That law and order individual is President Biden. And these were the comments that he delivered on the verdict after Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies.
That's how the American system of justice works. And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years. And it literally is the cornerstone of America, our justice system. The justice system should be respected. And we should never allow anyone to tear it down. It's as simple as that. That's America. That's who we are. And that's who we'll always be, God willing.
Powerful stuff. Brett, I want to read what Anthony Scaramucci wrote a little bit earlier, because I think it's a good way to sum this all up. He goes, President Biden is ahead in the latest polls and has a comfortable lead with likely voters. Whatever his weaknesses may be, Joe Biden is an American hero. He spared the country from the dangers of Donald Trump's second term, and he is going to stop him again in November. The GOP still has a chance to fix this, but they lack courage. They also allowed Trump and his family to hijack the RNC. Now, Anthony Scaramucci is on that list of people who used to work for Donald Trump. This was Donald Trump's former press secretary. Yes, he only lasted for one Scaramucci, but he saw what was going on there and just couldn't be a part of it, couldn't deal with it once he saw what was really happening. And that's coming from, a Trump insider right there who now knows the threat and danger Trump poses to our democracy. I don't love talking about polls or really even like talking about the polls. It's worth mentioning, though, that at least since the verdict was handed down, a lot of independents and even Republicans moving away from Donald Trump and President Biden leading in some of the latest aggregate of the polls. But I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on what's going on in our country. I want to focus on policy. I want to focus on data. I want to focus on information. I want to remind everybody to make sure that y'all are registered to vote. I want to focus on things like the price of crude oil per barrel is down significantly now, and OPEC's attempt to try to artificially raise prices was outmaneuvered by President Biden. And now the price per barrel of crude is falling rather dramatically. That's good news heading into the summer. How the CHIPS Act that President Biden pushed through the House of Representatives is attracting massive amounts of investments. And the U.S. is now on pace to add more investment in electronics manufacturing construction this year alone, as it did in total from 1996 to 2020. That's a renaissance of the semiconductor industry here and actually bringing jobs to America. Donald Trump's words, when they're not criminal, are worthless. So his words are either criminal or worthless. He'll make promises and lies and fraud. It doesn't matter. He just spews a bunch of nonsense. You have to actually look at people's actions. You have to look at their record. President Biden's willing to have those tough conversations. He's willing to say things and do things knowing that it may not be politically expedient for him. But you have to appreciate, regardless of if you disagree with him, that he's guided by a set of values and principles that have a level of predictability that's important, that are grounded in normalcy, and that he surrounds himself with the smartest people and the brightest people he puts in the room. And he's open to a lot of different viewpoints. And he's often trying to be very, very solution oriented and deliver for the American people. Is he perfect? Does he do everything right? Do I agree with everything he does? No, but if that's what you're looking for, that just doesn't exist. But here's someone who's is a decent and honorable person, who's compassionate and who's doing important things each and every day for our country. So we'll leave it at that. We'll want to remind everybody, if you want to help support the growth of this independent media platform, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Our coverage here at the MeidasTouch network of the Trump criminal trial, and frankly, our news coverage in general, led all other news networks on digital, and continues to do so. One of the great stats I always love to share is that during the NBA playoffs, more people watched our YouTube than the NBA. During the Met Gala, more people watched our YouTube than the Vogue channel, which covered it and covered all aspects of it. During an Apple product launch, more people were watching the MeidasTouch network than the Apple YouTube channel. And that's a testament to the fact that this community is strong. We crave normalcy and the truth and the facts, and you're all sharing this YouTube and our news network with friends, family, coworkers, colleagues. So continue to do that, and we're grateful for that. If you're able to join the Patreon, we don't have outside investors, so that's a good way that we grow this media platform. patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We're going to be doing an after show after this concludes. You can watch the after show then. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Check it out. And just thank you, everybody. We're really, really grateful for you. Thank you to our pro-democracy sponsors. The discount codes are in the description below. Jordy spends a lot of time vetting our pro-democracy sponsors, and they help with this independent media platform also. So great products, great stuff. and it supports our network, and you get great discounts that Jordy helps negotiate. So check those out in the descriptions below. And you could always get those emojis as well, and that helps the growth of this platform with that $sign that you see on the YouTube. Subscribe to the MeidasTouch audio podcast wherever you get audio podcasts as well. So for our YouTube viewers, just go on your phones or your computer, wherever you listen to audio podcasts, and search the MeidasTouch podcast and download it on audio podcast. Thank you, everybody, for watching it, and we'll see you next time on the MeidasTouch podcast. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty!
Standing strong against the fascists, we sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Midas Mighty. Let's use our power well.